Good day. Hi, I'm Steve Johnson, Superintendent of Schools in Fort Ransom Elementary. A little bit about myself. I currently started my 45th year in education here in the state of North Dakota. For the last 28 years, I was superintendent of a K-12 district in Lisbon, North Dakota of approximately 620 kids. Currently, I do a little bit of work for Fort Ransom, which is a elementary district of only 25 students K through 6. With that, today I want to talk a little bit about our Rural School Partner Benefit Program that the Lisbon Public Schools along with Valley City State put together. We put this together approximately 2015, kind of tweaked it along and really got it fully activated in the fall of 2018, and we've been working on some of it ever since. Currently, we have 17 school districts in the state of North Dakota that have partnered up with Valley City State through this benefit program. And we want to talk a little bit about the benefits that this program brings both to higher ed, that being Valley City State, and to the K-12s like Lisbon Public Schools. My themes today, we're going to be talking about the timeline of building the partnership and relationship. This is not something that all of a sudden happened overnight. I was attending a teacher corps meeting down in Mitchell, South Dakota in 2015. And part of my action plan was to go to a higher ed in the state of North Dakota and see if I couldn't take some of the concepts that we talked about and the frameworks that we were working on to really hit this shortage of teachers in rural schools real hard in the state of North Dakota. So I brought those back. I'll talk about some of the things that it adds. I like to call that value added. There are things that help the university and there are things that help the K-12s. And so I think it's a win-win situation for both the school districts and the universities. We'll talk about some of the things that we believe very strongly make teachers classroom ready, school ready, and community ready. And we'll talk a little about the data that we have about attracting and retaining teachers in North Dakota. I don't think that we would be much different than anybody else that may be watching this. And then some proven strategies that we believe strengthens the recruitment and preparation and retention, because that was one of the main reasons that we got into this whole program with Valley City State, was to get back to what we call their original mission. And their original mission, they were in the Constitution of the state of North Dakota, and they were a normal school. They were the first normal school in the state, and that goes back to their purpose. And their purpose was to prepare teachers for these township school districts that were within their area. And being only 50 miles away from Valley City State, I have always had a strong history of Valley City State. And so we're trying to take this concept regionally and hit the other, what we used to call normal schools that are now universities, whose main purpose and their original mission was to prepare teachers to fulfill the needs of the school districts within the state, the public school districts in the state. We also had some change in scenery here in the early 1990s that had to deal with the dual credit, and that most certainly got to really start to build more and more on this relationship with higher ed, because we're now starting to compete even more with other types of college advanced placement courses and or dual credit. North Dakota has had a robust dual credit activities with its higher ed now for a number of years, and we wanted to get some consistency within that so that the kids that were actually doing these credits were of college level coursework. Another big change that I look at over my tenure would be No Child Left Behind. That act that was installed in 2001 was really about a number of things. That's when we started going to standardized curriculum, assessments, and that teachers had to be highly qualified. Now, most rural districts were hit very, very hard with highly qualified, because we would have a high school teacher that may be teaching in a minor field. And under No Child Left Behind, they no longer allowed the teacher to teach with a minor. And so this type of relationship building, we looked upon places like Valley City State to get our teachers so that they could get a major and or a major equivalency, so that they would be fully licensed to teach more than their first major. So along with that came a lot of professional development opportunities that the higher ed could get back to us. Here's a big one that we started hitting in 2015, is that through the years we've been offering dual credit, but some of our dual credit instructors that were not in the CTE programs did not have their master's degree in the discipline in which they were offering credit. And so a lot of small rural universities are also hit with that, where they've got college professors that they need to get up and make these disciplines and get their instructors having these necessary graduate credits. It is my understanding that Higher Ed Commission has extended that deadline to September 1 of 2023, that these dual credit high school faculty must have at least 18 graduate credits in their discipline. So that was another thing that we looked at really strongly when we developed this program with Valley City State University and this partnership that we grew with them. And then last but not least is something that we here at Lisbon have actually had on our strategic plan since 2001, 2000. Even in 1999, I find reference to it in our strategic plan, where I talked about the importance of recruitment and retention of teachers, because we seem to have the best and the brightest leaving us and going other places. And so we've put programs in place, such as a loan forgiveness program, to help bring those teachers in. So, and keep them here and retain them here, and sell that and market them. This picture here are kind of some main players, and I'm the short fat guy in this group with the Lisbon Bronco guy, little signature there. But next to me is Dr. Alan LaFay, and Dr. Alan LaFay is the president of Valley City State University. He's been there now going on 3 years, and he is, in my opinion, has really moved Valley City State up to a new level. He's personable. He goes out and he meets his constituents. He works on strategic planning. And when Dr. Jim Bowe, who's on the far left, and I first brought this program to him, he was 100% support of the whole program, and has been absolutely great with us. So Valley City State, the university president there, is a key to making this all work together. Next to Al is the taller of the two gentlemen there is Pat Adair. And Pat Adair is a secondary principal at Lisbon, is still there. Pat has been very, very instrumental in the dual credit. And one of the things that he and I have talked about over the years, he's been the principal there for about 12 years, is finding the replacements and filling positions, and actually getting, he was the first one that piloted our intro to teaching course through Valley City State, where he actually was the teacher of record and supervised juniors and seniors in the Lisbon Public Schools to have a dual credit course and intro to education and prepare them. So Pat was one of those that really kind of helped out in all of that and helped put those nuts and bolts together and did a lot of communication. And the last gentleman there on the far left, that's Dr. Jim Bowe. Jim, I've known him for a number of years back in the days when I was teaching in Western North Dakota, and Jim was at Minot Public Schools. And Jim has got a career technical education background. He is now the graduate dean of the University of Valley City State University, and he was in charge of what we called teachers and training program at Valley City State. Did a lot of that online course for the state of Wyoming to help them get their teachers fully qualified. And so he has been involved in these types of things. And so he's the one that really kind of put the memorandum of understanding together, the tuition waivers, and really understands what it needs for a high school teacher teaching dual credit to meet the new standards. And so he has just been wonderful to work with. Jim and I go back a number of years. I wish that he could be here with me, but he's not in a retirement mode like I am, and has not got the ability to travel. And I think that he would just love to be here, but he cannot. With that, I'll talk a little bit about the value added that this Rural Partner Program brings to the University of Valley City. It actually is a collaboration and actually sets up a rural school placement program for them. And so there's a number of things that we are trying to do at Lisbon to help them with that. So we'll help with this pre-service teachers, or in the lower years when they're just deciding that they're going to go into the education department. We'll work with them in collaboration of what we in the public districts are looking for as far as teachers and what we may have out there and available for them, so that we can kind of move those people around. That communication is really important, very, very important. And so, if you know that you're looking for a math teacher, you can kind of give that eye and that shout out to those people and work in communication, or you can come and talk to people and placement. We also have a tuition waiver for these partners. So for advanced degrees, right now we have 3 out of our 5 dual credit teachers are now in tuition waiver. The Lisbon Public Schools is picking up the cost of that tuition for those people. So at a cut rate from Valley City State University. And there's 2 things that they do there. Number one that they're doing is for the advanced degree. So they do have a couple of master's degrees that they offer there. And we do have a couple of teachers now that are in the program. And those programs for their master's degree. We also have, I believe, 3 out of our 5 dual credit teachers that are actually working through Valley City State and tuition waivers to get the necessary credits in their discipline so that they can offer and meet Higher Education Commission's standard here by September 1 of 2023. It also gives them an opportunity to transition their professional people, so they're in-service or pre-service teachers, and their student teachers many times will come to us, and we'll place those in the Lisbon Public Schools, and that for their professional opportunity. That's been working out really great. Like I said, I didn't say, but last year we had, right at about the time the COVID hit in 2020, we needed a math teacher, and there happened to be a graduate from Valley City State that was just hanging around. He had an apartment there. I was able to bring him to the Lisbon Public Schools and actually serve a medical leave that we had in advanced math area, and the kid lived in my basement. My wife made him supper every night, and we let him stay in our house rent free. But it was really wonderful for both the university and ourselves. They got a placement, and we got a teacher, and our students got somebody that actually could teach math on a long-term basis for a medical leave. So that was great. Professional development opportunities, wonderful for the university, gain some tuition from the Lisbon Public Schools and other members of this, even though it's maybe at a tuition waiver or at a discount. It does give them some opportunities to get out there and about there and offer those professional credits. And then last but not least, they get an association with students. And, it's a big competition for students nowadays across the nation. And so they're building relationship. And last year we had nearly 40 juniors and seniors taking dual credit through Valley City State University. Here's a great thing about Dr. Dr. Alan LaFay is last year he was able to come to our school and actually meet with our students and talk to those students. They handed out t-shirts. He did a little talk about Valley City State. You know, we don't know how many of those students actually will attend Valley City after they graduate, but these are students that he was able to meet, and they see a face and they get to talk to him. And you know, maybe we'll get 3 more kids that'll go to Valley City State because of his presence in our school during their time, and they got to meet the president of the university. So that was really, really fun. We also, you know, being only 50 miles away from Valley City, North Dakota, we have a great number of graduates of Valley City State on our teaching staff. And so here's just a picture of the teaching staff. We have about 65 certified staff members that are graduates of Valley City State. And this was an opportunity to them to get to meet the president of the university and talk highly about them. He brought us some great news last spring, so they were really fired up about that because Valley City State was chosen as #1 education prep university for elementary education. So they were pretty pleased about that and pretty pumped. The value added that it gives back to its partner schools, and right now this partnership program has grown to be 17 school districts as of last spring throughout the state of North Dakota. It gives their placement of their teachers out there, their pre-service teachers, some practicum experience, so they know that their partners will always open up the doors for their pre-service teachers, and so they got a place to go. Collaboration in developing school placement from Valley City State graduation. You know, we finally, Valley City State, we have always in the history of the Lisbon Public Schools had an outstanding music program. And we saw it kind of go the opposite way one time when we had a teacher there that was a short period, didn't last very long, really didn't know that they wanted to be a teacher, and it just really did not work out very well. And now we've got another Valley City State grad back out there. So, you know, we're pretty proud of that collaboration that we have in those particular areas. And we're pretty proud to get Valley City State grads in the music area. And if there's anybody out there that knows Dr. Alan LaFay, he's an old music major, and in fact, he was a professor of music at Northern of Aberdeen, and he's a heck of a clarinet player. So we've got a little bit to talk about when we start talking about music teachers. But that's just one area, and so that's important. Professional development of staff, including getting dual credit instructors fully qualified. And I'd mentioned to that right now that we have 5 dual credit people that we have. We're working on 1 more. And of those, we had Dr. Jim Bowe went through all of their transcripts, and we're getting all of them actually fully licensed and certified under the new commission rules, and doing that as quickly as possible and as painless as possible. And then, of course, the dual credit opportunities. Last year, we had nearly 40 juniors and seniors that went through the dual credit program through Valley City State University. And these are the classes that we had to offer. And that's quite a bit because we only have a high school of 195 kids. And when you're breaking that down now, you're looking at just juniors and seniors. And juniors and seniors have approximately 45 kids in each of the grades, you know, 45 to 50. And so when you're looking at 40 kids out there that are getting dual credit. Now, our dual credit that we're offering right now is quite interesting, but it's quite a value added. And North Dakota, along with that, has now implemented a little scholarship program so that these kids that do get dual credit, when they register now, they get another tuition waiver by the state of North Dakota on those courses that they have previously taken as far as dual credit. Here's, I think my five, this is my five dual credit teachers right now through Valley City State. We have Barb Sweet on the far left. She does advanced biology. Then we have Mark Moss, that does both economics and U.S. history. Then in the middle, Pat Adair, our secondary principal, he does the intro to teaching. That was the first one that we did in partnership with Valley City State, was the intro to teaching. And he has usually about 2 kids per semester. And so he has weekly meetings with them, supervises them, and then he assigns them into the area that they have of interest. It may be elementary, it may be secondary, and it may be the middle school area. Then we have Tricia Schmidt. She is our English, so she has dual credit in college English. And then last is Courtney Vessel, and Courtney there, she does the mathematics. So she currently is doing college algebra for dual credit. But you just can't imagine what as a parent out there, and that you know that you've got kids with a strong academic background. We get a lot of supervision from the college, the university itself on the curriculum. And so they work in partnership with them, and they become actually employed by Valley City State. They get a little extra salary on that. And I can give you some more of those details as we talk about this, or if you like, you can send me a private message. But it's really, really wonderful for them, and it's really wonderful for our parents and for our students, because they can graduate from Lisbon public schools with a number of credits already achieved. And with those college tuitions going up, what they can get here, and along with the tuition and along with the scholarships that we have to offer, these kids are going to have some fantastic opportunities as they go through. One of the handouts that I gave the people at the forum was the memorandum of understanding and a signed agreement between the two, that being the K-12 district and the university. And with that, the main thing that we wanted to make sure that we had in this, when talking with Dr. Bo and myself, is we wanted to build a relationship of collaboration. And so that we both understand that this is part of our mission. So their education department, that's part of their mission. It's part of our mission, that we want to focus on student learners and make sure that we have educators coming out of their prep programs that are ready for the classroom, ready for the community, and ready all together. Our goal with this program was to meet demands of high qualified teachers. This shortage is not something new. It's something that's been going on for a long, long time. And we're not going to have a quick fix. This most certainly, the Rural Partner School program is not a quick fix. It's something that we have to build on, and you have to work on and go through that. But we most certainly feel that this collaboration for the demand, we have to start picking these kids early and picking them right away, so that we can start getting them into situations where we can have success for them as graduates from our high school. And if they do choose to go into education, that we want them to be successful when they go into college. And then once they get out into the teaching field, they become very successful. One of the things that I can't overemphasize is that, that you really have to ask the question of your community. What positive narrative would you want a prospective teacher to know about your community? You know, I really look at this as part of the community. It is not a school problem when you can't fill a position. That is a community issue. Schools and communities in rural America have to work as one together. So if it's a housing issue, if it's a salary issue, if it's a negative culture issue, we have to work as a community to try to resolve that. And one of the first things that you have to do to resolve that is that you can't be looking at the negative all the time. Focus on the positive. So not that you don't understand what your barriers are or your negatives are, but you should really focus on what you think is the right thing to do. So focus on the positive, not the negative. We always have to remember in your community that the quality of education cannot exceed the quality of its teachers. The more and the older I get and the more experienced I get at education, the more I appreciate good teaching and good teacher leaders. You know, good leaders are not always administrators. Sometimes you have some really good teachers that are really good leaders, and so you have to work with them. Another issue that the rural school districts face is we don't have the HR capacity. When I was the superintendent of schools in Lisbon, I did not have an office of 3 people that did all the kinds of things that you need to do to really go out there and market yourself. So it has to be a group effort, and you have to dedicate that recruitment efforts and strategies and communicate. So at Lisbon Public Schools, recruitment of teachers, the retention of teachers, and the training of teachers was a strategic planning process that started with our board, our faculty, and our community, and we worked it all within inside of our own school strategic plan. And that I cannot emphasize that enough. And really a big part of recruitment and retention is just selling your community and connecting the stories with place. So that is a very important part of what we do. Collaboration with colleges of education is critical partners in building strong, talented pipelines. I was a superintendent of schools in Lisbon for 28 years. I only had 2 college presidents visit me over those years or even invite to talk to me. And one side or the other really has to go out of their way to actually get and form that relationship. It wasn't in my part a lack of trying, but sometimes if I were to be critical about higher ed, sometimes in higher ed, they chase the dollar. And if it happens to be a big money-making deal that they'll have at that particular time, they'll be chasing after that and really change their mission. And sometimes we as school districts aren't doing what we need to do to really partnership up with what we need to do. And so that one, really collaboration. Like I said, I had real difficulties when I left the rural school collaborative meeting down in Mitchell, South Dakota, with my action plan as far as tying together with higher ed. Higher ed is not something that I know the system very well. And I know that it operates a whole lot different than K-12 does. But those partnerships between the two, I think is very, very critical. And they need to set up some type of a pipeline so that they can communicate between the two more freely and work together to form these strong talent pipelines. What are we noticing about recruitment, placement, and retention of outstanding rural teacher leaders? And I like to put the two together as far as teacher, leader. Pay is an issue, but it is not the only issue. There's shortages of qualified candidates all over this. So this national trend of young moving to urban areas is huge. And on top of that, we have issues where a lot of people really can't afford, or we're set up as such that there's not a lot of opportunities in rural communities. So we need to start looking at that qualified candidates in a different way. Communities need to do a better job of marketing their assets. I actually set up in our strategic planning, I brought in community leaders, school leaders. I brought in parents and teachers, and we talked about what positive aspects would you want a prospective teacher to know about your community? And so we worked on that, and we took all of those things down and we used them as marketing assets when we could get candidates, and we recruited them, and we recruited them hard. You need sometimes, and it's reverse. So you in our universities, you need to look at that the other way, that if you've got a education department and you want kids in there, you should be recruiting kids to be science teachers like the football coaches recruiting football players. They need to be asked. They need to be asked early. And sometimes you can get the benefits. When we first kicked off this program in the very beginning, one of our top athletes, not only was he taking the intro to education because he wanted to be a science teacher, but he also signed a letter with Dr. Alan LaFay to play football, letter of intent to play football. So not only is he going to be a science teacher, but he's also going to be a football coach. And that was his dream. And so sometimes they go hand in hand. Retention is often difficult if teachers do not develop a relationship with the community. So you're probably going to find in other seminars throughout this workshop, this conference, this forum, that relationships within the community is very, very important. So that's why I always use teacher/leader, because our good teachers at Lisbon Public Schools are also community leaders. They're the ones that are trying to save the swimming pool and build a new swimming pool, or they're the ones that are out there backing the football and supporting the football boosters club, or they're the teachers that are out there in they're active in their church, or they're active in some other thing, Dollars for Scholars or some other organization, but they're community members, and they've built a relationship with the community and the families within our community. And sometimes we need to look at alternative forms of attracting, and I'll talk about some of those that we are using here in the state of North Dakota. How do we work together to enhance preservation? We promote more intense and real life experiences in rural schools. I talked earlier about a young teacher just graduating from college. He has a lease in Valley City, and and we want to offer him a job in Lisbon. Well, what's he going to do? Economically, he can afford both. So I set him up, and he stayed in my basement. It was really no big deal for us. My wife and I, our children are grown and moved out, and I got a big house. And so what if he took over our basement? But it was an experience that we have. So we really need to promote that and prepare that. Our rural teacher preparation programs need to be more futuristic. In other words, there is a school online that's starting up every other day. And they may all sound good, but I think that relationship building doesn't really exist that way. So we talked to our dual credit teachers for a while, and we talked about sometimes you're going to almost act like an independent contractor. And so they want to key up their skills, because kids have some other opportunities to do other things now. And so those classes have to be really important, and build strong focus on teachers as respected professionals. I always hesitate when I see a school district if they want me to help them out, and I see they've got a lot of turnover. A lot of turnover usually means there's some things that they have to, and culture-wise, they have to really start to develop and say, well, what importance is education in this community? And you really need to look at that. One of the things that I really, really now have supported is the book that came out last spring, and I got it right away. And a couple of my friends are on there as far as authors, but it's Teaching in Rural Places. I read that book one weekend, and the next I ordered 5 more of them, and I gave them to all my principals And I said, you guys need to read this. And then when we got done reading that, we bought 5 more, and we asked all of our teacher leaders and to kind of pass it around. But, you know, I couldn't emphasize if you are placing any teacher, if you're a university and you're placing teachers out in rural places, you know, pick up this book and put it on your reading list, and ask your pre-service teachers to read this and really get a sense. Because, you know, one of the negative things that we always have in rural places is we have our own kind of language, we have our own kind of thought, and sometimes we don't do well with outsiders. So, you know, yeah, when I got my first job in Western North Dakota, I'll never forget. My wife and I go to the movie one night, and somebody stands up and they go, "Mr. J is at the movie." You know, people didn't know who I was, but they knew who I was then. They announce it. They've got an outsider in there. I'm not a family member. And so those kinds of relationship buildings are pretty important. For administrators, the chapter that I liked the most was Thriving in Rural Communities. Know the language, understand the assets of a community, family partnerships, how to form those, and how to build overall relationships. So it's an excellent book. I would recommend that to any college, university that is preparing teachers to go out into rural communities. And I'd also strongly suggest that all administrators in K-12 pick up a copy of this book and go through it and pass it around and read it. One of the people that I have is a very close friend of mine, Dr. Denise Jonas. I thought I'd bring this along with to help out, because she was one of the second schools that actually got into the partnership with Valley City. She is the career technical education director for the area, Fargo area, which consists, I believe, of 5 different school districts. It's no, 4. It's Fargo, West Fargo, Castleton, and Northern Cass in Fargo area. And fairly large schools. You know, Fargo is the 2nd largest school district in the state. West Fargo is right around that. If not, they've surpassed them. So fairly large school districts compared to Castleton and Kindred, Castleton and Northern Cass. But she's been using these activities through Valley City State and this partnership to have some of these classes for teaching and cooperative agreements. So she's using it through the CTE. Training of professionals and pre-teaching kinds of things, so they could possibly be pairs or whatever. Kind of an interesting little take here. So here you've got pictures of teachers. You can see there at West Fargo High School, you've got Dr. Alan LaFay is in the background. They get a little bit more press up there when they go to Fargo and West Fargo than they would if they were in Lisbon, because they were larger school districts. But these are a number of teachers, students there, juniors and seniors that are doing dual credit through the rural partner school benefit program. And they're taking dual credit in teacher intro to teaching. And hopefully someday they will be either paras or they will be teachers themselves. With that, she has a wonderful video that I'd like you guys to watch. It's testimonials that were given by student teachers, or the students taking dual credit in the Fargo public schools. And they actually did this testimony to the Fargo School Board on December 10th of 2019. Let's take a listen.
Bonjour, my name is Hannah. I am a senior at high school as well. And once I graduate, I plan to go into a French education field. Either a middle school or high school French teacher. Once my 8th grade year of middle school came about, I just took French as a fun thing to do to learn a new language. And then after you decide it's grown, it's become something that I've really loved. And it's not just because how my perspective on life has changed through learning about their culture and stuff. It's because I've also had some amazing teachers who have really impacted my life. And so through taking this class, it's made me have the opportunity to work with other students and get an idea of what this field is really going to be like once I exit and go into college. And it's really solidified the idea that this is what I want to do. And it just gives me a chance to, now that I'm observing a level 2 French class at the UDs, to be able to work with the students is an amazing experience, to know like what an average day of a teacher is going to look like and all the responsibility that comes with it. I love going into the class and just having a conversation with the students and getting those in-depth ideas from their perspective and how everyone has a different opinion on topics. It's really interesting to see people come together and collaborate on that. I love how this class is a dual credit class, so even though I can get college credit, but I still have the experience now to solidify the idea of me becoming a teacher. Julie has been an amazing instructor as well, just letting us ask her a billion questions during the day and getting her perspective and her response along with the other educators' responses that I've been asking a bunch of questions when I do my observations.
Hi, my name is Claire Edson, and I am a junior at Davies High School, and I'm looking to be an elementary education teacher. So basically, I really like this class because it's given me a lot of hands-on experience with what being a teacher is really like. And one thing that we did at the beginning was we observed elementary, middle, and high school, which I found to be very helpful because I wasn't exactly sure exactly where I wanted to be, but after watching all of them, I'm kind of set on being an elementary school teacher. And I think that being able to go to our teachers, like my teacher, at least for me, she's helped me a lot. And like one thing she said to me, one of the first times I observed with her was teaching is learning. And that's really opened my eyes a lot because it's so true. You're constantly learning as a teacher, you're learning about the students, you're learning about all the different types of different projects and stuff. And I just think that the overall experience has been really good. And I do really like the discussions that we have in class. We often dig deep into the material in our textbook that we're reading. And we talk about, social scenarios. And we've talked about the psychology part of it. And we've talked about so many different issues and things that can arise in teaching, but we've made conversations about them. And that's super helpful too. And I just think after doing this class, I've noticed that I love going on observations. I love watching, people teach, and that's kind of what makes me know that I should be a teacher, because if I like watching it, then I'm sure I'll love doing it. Yeah, so I give this class 2 thumbs up.
How do you follow that? All right, I don't know. Well,
thanks to Dr. Denise Jonas for offering that to us, but it gives you a little idea. I think that's fantastic when you actually have students that are in the intro to teaching through this partnership, the enthusiasm they have as high school students receiving not only dual credit, but getting some skills here that they believe that will carry them on into college and then hopefully become teachers themselves. So thanks to Dr. Denise Jonas for offering that information to us through this program. Talk a little bit now about proven strategies to strengthen recruitment, preparation, and retention. Develop a network of positive role models. What better thing than have the role models when they actually start in high school and even in grade school. We're never too early to start recruiting good teachers. When I start talking and interviewing individuals about when did they want to become a teacher, I hear some of them start talking about they wanted to be teachers when they were in elementary school, And so if we can encourage them and be role models to them, we can most certainly help them get along. And if we can introduce them and get them some dual credit through a rural partnership with a university, that too can also bring it along with them. Reframe the rural narrative by emphasizing the positive aspects of rural experience. And teachers will never do us any good, or administrators, if we stand up in front of a group of people and a group of kids and we talk about how terrible education is every day. Never going to get, and there's been a lot of griping over the last 18 months because of COVID, but there's been a lot of positive things that have happened too. And we try to take away from the negative, stay away from that, and really kind of keep it positive. Focus on efforts to recruit students during their K-12 years. You know, ask some people, I mean, do you want to be an educator? I am so proud as a parent to have my youngest daughter as an educator. She teaches in Davies High School in Fargo. And I'm really proud that she is an educator and followed in my footsteps. Develop efforts to recruit mid-career professionals. We've gone so far now at Lisbon Public Schools through the program we have as far as tuition that we've taken aides, paras in special ed and moved them from being a para to having a bachelor's degree in education to having a master's degree in special education strategist, all through the school's help and support. And these are sometimes from no fault of their own. Their whole career paths have been swayed one way or the other. And they've been here and they wanted to become a teacher, but didn't have the background to do that, the educational background. And we've offered that. So don't forget about the mid-career people. Seek opportunity to develop programs that include scholarship incentives. That's always been a part of ours, placement, scholarships, and then build community collaboration as the importance of education. One of the areas I'm pretty proud of and that Denise brought up to us is the leadership begins in high school. And here's some of those CTE organizations: FBLA, Skills USA, TSA, FCCLA, DECA, and FFA. I'm an old president of our FFA chapter when I was in high school. And, you know, the experience I have with public speaking from that and also on how to conduct a meeting, how to run a meeting, how to be organized. Those are skill set that I learned as far as leadership. One that I added at Lisbon Public Schools is I actually developed what I called the superintendent student cabinet. We had student leaders in each class and they would represent their leadership with inside there. They weren't always the best and the brightest, but they were kids that really wanted to be a difference, not only in their school, but in their community. And I'd meet with them every 2 weeks and we'd have lunch together. And I kind of carried the agenda, but we talked about what was going on in schools and some of the things that they liked and things that they didn't like, and how can we communicate with the community and what was their role in the community? Because many times in small rural communities, we really haven't established a role for our youth. Where do we want them to be, or what do we want them to do, or what do we have? I mean, everybody likes to come and watch them on Friday night play football, but sometimes we don't know how we're preparing them to be on the city council, how to be on the church council, how to be on a school board. What is their role, their civic duty in that? I tell you what, I can tell with working with my school boards over 45 years, I can tell very quickly when I have a member of a school board that has a background in like Robert's Rules of Order and knows how to conduct a meeting. And those organization skills have a really purpose in those CTE. This is some data from, and I just bring it out really briefly, I'll talk about it. Ian Grandy, I helped him with his master's program, and he did a study. His research topic was North Dakota teacher shortage. And what he did is he grouped districts in three groups, Group A, Group B, and Group C, and defined Group A. Group A was the larger school districts in the state that were located in a community that had a university with college prep. Okay. So we're talking Fargo's, Grand Forks, the Bismarcks, the Minotts, those kinds of areas. Group B were the smaller school districts that were within 20 miles of those universities, or were actually in a smaller community with the university, like Valley City State or Mayville State. They're two examples of smaller universities that have college prep, but they're not in the largest area. And then you had Group C, and Group C were those communities that are outside of those counties. So they're more than 30 miles away. In the case of Lisbon, we're 65 miles away from the nearest Walmart. And being 65 miles away means that we're 65 miles away from Fargo. And 65 miles away from, but we're only 50 miles away from Valley City. But as you can see, Valley City is in that Group B. And so there's a little bit difference here as far as when it comes to recruitment. Two of the examples that he has that I pulled data out of is these are the unsuccessful applicants, the number of applicants that they had, disparity in the number of applicants. Social studies, Group A had 42.33. Group B had 15 and Group C had 3.5. So their pools were a whole lot of difference there. Now, when you go to special education, which takes a whole new level of certification, you're looking at some tremendous numbers, whereas Group A has 3.57, Group B 1.28, and those outside of those prep areas, 0.85. Those are some serious numbers. We also did a survey a number of years back. It was a cooperative effort between the National Rural Education Association, the Rural School Collaborative, and TNTP. And the purpose of the survey was to gather information on recruitment and retention of rural teachers. And this survey was done in all 50 states. And I just pulled the information from the state of North Dakota out. The recruitment and retention of rural community require a connection to the stories of place. Now, in the state of North Dakota, we found that other rural educators that are out there, 60% of them or higher were very much satisfied with their job. So there was job satisfaction. North Dakota was most satisfied in technology resources. North Dakota is a state that's very well connected, and we've done a wonderful job of making sure that we have all of our classrooms connected. In the small community I am, for the last 18 years, we have had fiber in every home inside the state or inside the community. So, you know, connectivity is well known here, and we have a lot of technology. Most of our schools are one-on-one, and so technology is not something that's a huge issue. So it wasn't surprising that they were very satisfied with that. However, their lowest satisfaction was that they feeling that the community did not reach out to embrace them as a new teacher, with a slightly higher rating with access to collaborate with peers. So those are two areas that I feel that we work on at Lisbon Public Schools. We try to work on really well. So when we hire new ones, we try to get them involved in our community, be part of the community, and then we also try to find ways so that they can collaborate with others, because those are important things for retention. The other area that we found is that time in the community and the barrier. You know, 60% lived in the community for over 7 years. So somebody could say, well, if you keep them more than 7 years, you're more likely to keep them or retain them. But eventually people like myself retire. So you have to have some kind of plan for where they're at. And right now there is a huge shortage in my state. I don't know what you guys are doing and how you're dealing with it in yours, but there isn't a day goes by that I don't find somebody that's out there that never filled an English position, a math position, a special education position. The biggest one I saw was music. Didn't fill a music position. And they are just scrambling to try to fill these. And it is hard, very, very hard. We thought the distance was going to be a bigger factor than it actually is, but 63% were born and raised or went to school more than 30 miles away from where they were currently working in their rural school. Barriers. Some of the barriers we found, 12% talked about a lack of proper health care. I've only had one teacher in my 28 years at Lisbon, and during their interview tell me that the reason they left is because our hospital did not deliver babies. And that was one of the reasons that they were going to go to another community. 22 comparable low salary. About 12 years ago, we did a little study on rural special education consortiums inside the state. And we found that those full service where the actual consortium hired the teacher had a $1,200 less salary than their counterparts. $1,200 less than their general education counterparts that they were working next to. 27% lack of available housing. In my community right now in Lisbon, that's absolutely huge. I actually led the search committee to find my replacement last spring at Lisbon. And we did have one of the finalists that pulled his name because his wife didn't find any homes that she liked, and there was none available. The gentleman that we did get, and he's a good one, no questions asked. He got close to pulling his name, but then he made a real strong decision to make a commitment, and he's actually building a home. But there was not a lot of available housing. And so housing is an issue in rural areas, and investors aren't as likely to go into a rural community. 29 years ago when I moved here from Lisbon, my borrowing power when I was more than X number of miles from a urban center like Fargo, North Dakota, was about 60% less on the same salary. So investors, that kind of tough. So available housing, that's when the community really has got to work together and probably tie in with USDA and try to make sure that you can get some kind of a housing availability and available to everybody. And of course, during this COVID situation, the housing market has just gone completely nuts. So it's even got worse. And then 28 was a distance to amenities, the things they like to do. And there was a few other barriers that they talked about. So, you know, I put this one down from in North Dakota from May 2018 to May 19th, growth to metro areas. North Dakota only had 7 non-metro center counties had growth in jobs, whereas nationally it's on a 5.5% of new jobs were in non-metro areas. So, you know, there's certain areas that it's a little more difficult than others. With that, during the in-person presentation, I'll take a little time for questions and answers. For those that are watching this on the net, you can always get a hold of me. You can direct message me on my Twitter account at Johnson557377, or email me at stephen.johnson@k12.nd.us. And I'll try to get to as much information as I possibly can to you. With that, I appreciate you all joining us today, and I hope that you have a great conference. You enjoy yourself, and don't be a stranger. Thanks you, and have a great day.